Hello. Today I want to talk to you about an important aspect when selling your business, which is uncovering the assets within your business. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about what are those assets, and it's something that is often overlooked by the owners of businesses, and that's quite understandable because when you're working in the business, when you're very close to that business, some of the very important aspects that you do, some of the value that you've created within your business are second nature. You've been doing it for a long time, it's very easy to overlook, but those assets are often the reasons that can make the difference between success and failure, or between a high valuation and a very mediocre one. So it's very, very important to understand what those are. It's also important to understand what they are from the perspective of making sure that they are optimized, that they can be clearly understood by a buyer coming in, and that you've documented those assets, that you've created processes for them. And those assets could figure in a number of areas. First of all, and if looking at our EVA equity wheel, where it's got the 5 sections, if I was to go through that and just pull out a few possible assets, and there'd be far more than that, but if I was to pull out a few assets from each segment, looking first at competitive space, the positioning that you've established for your business and your knowledge within that specific sector in itself can be an asset for you and your organisation. Just understanding what differentiates your business within the market and having established that differentiator and having the brand, having the collateral behind it and establishing the position. This is the most important bit, having established that position in the minds of your potential clients and customers. That's a very, very valuable asset. And that's where you see really big multiples being paid for organisations. When people think of a particular sector of the market, then they think of that company. To give you a very easy example was going back a few years in the automotive industry. When you think of Volvo, you thought of one thing, and that was safety. Subsequently, they tried to become an organisation that was providing cars to a much wider range of people, and as a consequence they lost that strong hold that they had of safety. And actually, if you look at the performance of Volvo as an organisation, it's performed less well since then. They diversified, trying to make a bigger market, but actually their performance dropped, and it's something you see quite often. If you were to continue in the automotive industry, you would think of the driving machine. Most of you now will be thinking BMW. That's seen as being the driver's car, but that's something that they've managed to establish a niche for and hang on to and continue in that sector. So it's very important being able to establish that niche. The second segment which we have on our wheel is marketing fuel, and that's quite difficult for most companies in the technology sector. In fact, I would say that probably 80 to 90% of the companies that operate in the technology sector really struggle on the marketing side. And one of the reasons for that is that marketing has changed dramatically over the last 5 years alone. If you were to go back 50 years, you wouldn't recognise it. And unfortunately, our knowledge of where marketing is today for most senior leaders, and even for the specialists, we come across this quite a lot, marketing specialists that have been in the industry for quite some time, their knowledge can be out of date, and as a consequence can make things very difficult when trying to generate leads. Because the key thing that they're looking to establish there is once they've established that competitive space, they've established their narrative and the marketing messages, is to generate leads for the sales team, and that's very important. But if you've got the ability to be able to do that, then that can be a very valuable asset. How you do it, your methodology, and proof that you can do it is a very, very good asset to have within your organisation. Thirdly on our wheel is the sales engine, and we say sales engine because that really drives the whole company. And if you're not selling, you haven't got very much. But if you've got a very successful sales force, a successful sales team that is constantly bringing in sales and at good margins, then you have something very valuable. A good process behind that that can clearly show how you win those sales is another very, very good asset. Going round to the fourth sector on our wheel, which is the management drivers. Now, I could spend probably half a day just talking about the potential assets that you could have in that area, but probably one of the key ones is being able to understand where your business is, being able to analyse the data from your business and on a frequent basis. I'm not just talking about annually at the end of the year to get to the end of the year and say, well, we didn't make it this year, guys, or we've had a great year, but continually throughout the year. What revenue are we achieving? What margins are we achieving? Where are we achieving our best sales? Which products, which services, within which geographic areas? All of that information is very, very valuable. There's lots more assets that can be derived from that area, but that's just one example. And then with the exit strategy, to be M&A primed, as we called it, is very, very important. Because one of the things that you have to get right, if you're wanting to sell your business for maximum value, is to get the timing correct. Timing is absolutely critical. And we can explain that in more detail perhaps on another video, or perhaps one of the seminars that we've got coming up. Hopefully there'll be one near you. But the timing, once you are in that zone, that critical zone, when your business is a very valuable item, then you need to make sure that you are M&A primed so that you can move through the M&A process very, very quickly. And having all of that information, having that process prepared, making sure that you aren't going to come up against lots of obstacles, lots of requests for data that you can't respond to, that is going to elongate that process, means that you are in the optimum position. And that in itself can be M&A primed. It's also an asset that a buyer's going to want to see from you. And that's not always quite so obvious, but a buyer won't want a prolonged M&A process. They also won't want a process that's going to cost them a lot more money with lawyers' fees, with all the legal fees and accountancy fees. If there are issues during that process, then their bill for acquiring your business is going to increase significantly. So being M&A primed, but being able to prove that up front is a great asset. And that's one of the things that we teach you about, and we can explain as to how you can put that in place, how you can prove that, and how you can make sure that that M&A process, which can be very lengthy, can be greatly reduced, which would be to your benefit, because like all the rest of the segments within the EVA wheel, if you get it right, it maximises the value of your business. So that's it for today, talking about assets. But if you'd like to know any more, please subscribe. Contact us by email, go onto our website bossequity.com. There's lots of articles there. Also, subscribe to Boss Insights, which is our industry newsletter that goes out to people within the senior executives within the software technology sector, and it's aimed at the senior executives because it's articles and information about M&A. So please subscribe, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you very much.